I'm Matt with Meat Church. Today, let me show you guys how to make an amazing brisket during the week. And we're gonna do it on the brand new Traeger Ironwood XL. So I teach barbecue around the world, and oftentimes when I'm teaching brisket, I find that most people are making briskets on the weekend, but a lot of people want brisket during the week, but they have jobs, they can't man their cookers, their pits, whatever the case is. So about 3 years ago, we made a video on this channel called the Weekday Brisket, and it's been a huge hit. It's showed people how on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you could prepare brisket for the next day. And I've got a buddy in town tomorrow night where we're doing another video. We're going to do a barbecue and bourbon pairing for a future video, so y'all be sure to check that out. I'm super stoked for that. And one of the pairings is brisket. So at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, 25 hours from now, we need brisket. So what I tell people is pull your head out of the recipe. Don't look at this piece of paper that says a 12-pound brisket at 250 takes 11, 12 hours. Let's elongate this cook to our need. And so that's what we're gonna do today, and it's super duper simple. But before we jump into that, I'm gonna have my friend Ryan come in, who is the co-host of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. He's also the master blender at Pursuit Spirits.
What's up, brother?
Hey man,
How
good
are
to
you,
see
man?
you.
Came bearing gifts. Nice chilly night here in Texas.
Heck
Nothing
yeah.
better than a good glass of bourbon. Cheers,
Nothing,
brother.
cheers. I do wanna ask, like, give us a little glimpse, like, you don't have to tell us what you're gonna pair it with. I don't know, what do you think? What do you think this would pair with?
Man, so obviously you said salt and pepper. What else is in the, I know it looks like you're using the holy cow here.
Yep.
What else is in here? What kind of flavors? That'll kind of give me an idea of what.
It's definitely pepper forward.
Okay, pepper forward. So, all right. And you got a lot of fat in brisket, so that's gonna be, really heavy. So I'm thinking, something like with some fruit, but some nice spice. We need something big and bold that's gonna stand up to that fat and that pepper. So let me think on this tonight.
Okay.
Do you care if I take this home and look at the ingredients and then
Go
I
for
can get to thinking about what I'm gonna pair? I got a few things in mind.
Yeah.
Probably gonna be more of a rye bourbon style, but let me think on it and we'll do that. I guess that tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, tomorrow night. I mean, tonight we've got a little tasting that we're heading over to across street, but we're gonna roll this on video for tomorrow. So, yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, cheers,
All right.
brother. I'll see you tomorrow night.
I'm gonna carry on, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night.
Toodles.
All right. All right, so let's talk about what we're gonna be doing, how we're gonna be getting this cooked. So obviously, again, I'm starting with a brisket that is already trimmed and seasoned. I'll put a card up here for how to trim this brisket. This is my standard trim, which is just kind of nice and even, and we've seasoned it simply with our holy cow. It's that simple. So talk about the cooker. We've got the brand new Traeger Ironwood XL, and let me show you, when I say brand new, I've literally never cooked on this grill. All that I've done is the burn-in for the first hour. This thing is cherry. So hey, let's see, can a brand new Traeger make a great brisket? I guess we're about to find out. I'm sure it can. But we've got it loaded up with Meat Church pellets, which is oak and hickory. So I've dropped it down to 200 degrees. So I talked about needing this in 25 hours. Instead of saying, let's throw this on at 250 or 275, let's just go super low. 200 degrees, super smoke, and we're just gonna let it ride all night. I'm not gonna do a thing to it. Fat side up, I'm gonna put it up on the second shelf to kind of get it away from the heat source. Camera team's gonna come back tomorrow. We're gonna wrap it up early in the morning, probably about 12 hours from now, and that's it. So let's get it on here. So on a pellet grill, I know the heat source is in the middle, right here. I like to kind of get it away from that. I'm just gonna leave it just like that. We're not gonna do anything else to it. So I'll see you guys back here in the morning. I gotta go across the street and drink some bourbon. Good morning, guys. It's around 7 a.m. here in Texas. It's actually got pretty cold overnight. So we've been smoking this brisket for right at 13 hours. As I promised, I didn't do anything. I did put a meter leave-in thermometer in it. I'll show you. Often get questions about leave-in thermometers. Good idea to throw something in so that you can remotely monitor your cook progress, and with a meter you can actually look at it through the Traeger app, so it's super helpful. Or you can use an instant read thermometer. So that's the only thing I've done. So let's take a look. Looks great, to be honest with you. You could see the difference in the color of the grill, running 200 degrees super smoke all night. We've obviously, it's gotten dirty in here. We're getting good bark development on this brisket. Let's bring it over to the block. So you can see we've got nice bark starting to develop. The internal temperature, by the way, is 175 for what it's worth. Set that aside. So this is a pretty short and sweet brisket video, ultimately. Texas barbecue is one of my specialties. We've got lots of videos on how to cook a brisket. So for those of you that don't know us and have just jumped in and see us cooking this on a pellet grill, we've got videos on offsets with all sorts of tips and tricks. People literally fly from around the world to hear my brisket classes and lessons. But this one I want you to know is kind of short and sweet. But one of the first things we're going to look for is cooking is visual. You want to see that you're getting the bark that you want, the color you desire, and then I check in the flat for temperature. I like to wrap between 175 and 180 or so. So at this point, we're going to wrap it up in unwaxed butcher paper, and we're going to increase the temperature of the Traeger. So let me move that aside. Let me grab some paper. Little Montana Knife Company chef knife. All right, so I use 18-inch paper. I just slightly overlap it by a couple inches, and then I hit it with cider vinegar all over, a couple purposes. It makes the paper more pliable and easier to work with, but also we're gonna hit the brisket with it just a little bit to add a little bit of moisture. So right here in the middle where I'm gonna put it, I'll make sure I 100% cover it right there. And then I'm gonna lay my brisket right on top of that. Also gonna give a little cider vinegar spritz across the top. Now in other videos on offsets during the cook, had I not been doing this overnight, I would have put a little foil around the thinner portions or anything that was getting a little bit dark or something near the heat source. I don't do that in a pellet grill cook. And here's how I wrap. Lots of ways to do this. Actually, I need to scoot this up just a hair. I want room to be able to reach the paper over the top. I'm very particular about this. You want it nice and tight. So let's bring it towards us, lift the brisket up, tuck underneath, and then kind of like a paper football. Gonna go in on the corners here, nice and tight. That's the key. Some people like to pour tallow over their brisket right here. We don't cook with tallow, there's no need in it. So if you're using really good quality cut of meat, bring it over nice and tight. One little flip, pull it towards you so it's tight as can be. Flip it over again so we're super nice and tight. All right, I'm actually gonna take the leave-in thermometer, put it back in. This is optional, but I'm going right here in the flat. Okay, same spot basically. So let me throw it back in the Traeger, be right back. All right, let me see my phone. So, all right, so using my Traeger app, I can now actually see that probe in the meat. I can set a goal for that probe, which I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change the temperature of my thermometer to 195. Now that's not my target temperature. I'll explain that. And then I'm gonna increase the temperature of the grill to 275 degrees. All right, good to go. So why did I do all of that? Well, how am I gonna know this brisket's done? So brisket's done when they're tender in the flat and in the whole thing. But if I cook briskets to perfection in the flat, and then I know the point will be where it needs to be. If you said pick an internal temperature that'll be done at, will every piece of meat being different? I don't know. Usually around 203 degrees internal temp, and you guys have seen me use instant read thermometers to check it, which I still will do. I set that alarm at 195 to alert me that we're getting close. That's just something to say, hey dummy, your brisket's about ready, come check it. At which point I'll start checking it with an instant read. And when I get over 200, I will pull the brisket out, I will open the paper up and I will look at it and I will feel it. It's hard for me to teach you to learn how to feel a brisket and grab it, but you want to be able to do that so that you can feel the give and know when it's tender and good to go. So that's what we're shooting for. So at this point, this cook is just gonna roll. We've increased to 275. You could have done 250. Let's go back to what I said at the beginning. This is for a bourbon tasting this evening. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to finish this around lunchtime. Ultimately, I like to rest briskets about 8 hours. We don't have that long today. We're only gonna rest this probably a couple hours today. So I'm gonna bump up to render out those last fats, pull it off, and I'll let it rest the entire time. We'll talk about that more later. But know that there's fluctuation. If you want to carry this cook even longer, you could have went 225, 250. We went 275. I like a higher temp to finish. I'm going to go in my office work. I can monitor this from my phone, and I'll see y'all back when this brisket's near completion. All right, it's been right at about 3 hours. We got the alert that the brisket hit 195. I've already checked it with my instant read thermometer, and we were just over 200 degrees. It felt really tender, so I'm gonna bring it out and show you guys what I'm looking for visually. Ooh. So I've insulated gloves on. Ooh, she's juicy. Put no tallow in this whatsoever. So everything you see here is completely natural that has come out of this brisket. All right, so what I like to do, I mentioned earlier, kind of grab and get the feel. And you can tell like where the flat and the point come together, there's a little bit of give. And I'm not telling you that that's the method you should follow because that comes from experience of doing it a bunch. Oh, she's a beauty, man. You can tell how tender that is. Man, it's windy out here today. It got chilly. I had to put my big jacket on. It's in the 40s, but looks great. I mean, the bark has developed even further since we wrapped it. It's much darker. You can see how wet it is. So here's the deal with when do you want to eat brisket. So what do you do between now and then? Obviously, I've told you guys several times, we're cooking this for this evening. You'd never want to eat brisket at this temperature, right? At 200 degrees, it's gonna be way too hot. If you cut into it, you're gonna lose all that moisture. So we need to rest this down. The goal would be to rest down to an internal temperature of 140 degrees, then you can slice it. So what I like to do is I wanna keep this wrapped up. And I'll just tell you, here it's chilly out. I'm gonna leave this wrapped in butcher paper, and we're gonna rest it out here on the counter for a little bit. That'll stop the cooking process. If you wanna hold it longer, then at some point you can move it into a cooler. But if I leave this out here on this cutting board just like this, right now, probably in about 2 hours, it'd take nearly 2 hours at this cold temperature to get down to 140 degrees. In the summertime, it'd actually take 3 or 4 hours to rest down to 140. One more tip, Texas briskets are held at our top barbecue joints overnight in a warmer that runs 140 degrees. At home, most people don't have devices that will hold it 140 degrees unless you have a warming drawer inside. Ovens are normally 175. You can use a Traeger's Keep Warm feature that is 165. So I would like to rest it as long as possible generally. I would rest it here for at least 30 minutes to let it stop cooking. If you need to hold it for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, you can go 165 in here. But for purposes of video, I'll probably give it 30 minutes here, throw it in a cooler for a little bit. I'm only gonna rest it for, just till it gets to 140, which in this weather will take me no more than 2 hours, probably a little bit less. Then we'll slice it at that time, taste it, see how we did. See y'all later. We've rested this brisket down to exactly 140. So before we cut this thing open, a little bit of a reminder on what I was saying. I increased the temperature to 275 this morning because I like to cook higher to kind of finish it a little quicker. But again, especially if you're using this grill, you can do this remotely and you could slowly adjust the temperature throughout the day, or you could have bumped to like 225 and elongated the cook to, again, meet the needs of your life and kind of when you want this. I'm content resting this afternoon until, we do our bourbon tasting later. You don't have to be like every brisket's 12 hours or whatever the case is. So you can change it up. All right, so let's get this back open. Okay. I told you that I don't cook with tallow, but I certainly want to use anything that is in the paper, any residual, if you want to squeeze it or whatever the case is. It's okay to have tallow on your block and your board. I use every bit of my brisket trim. I render the fat down into tallow and keep it for times like this. I like to have it on my block when I'm slicing, so it'll make your brisket, look at this, already the shine looks a heck of a lot better, just based on that. But again, good to have it on your block when you're slicing. So looks great. Let's get a slicer here and see how we did. feels great. All right, well, you can tell it's super juicy. I'm not gonna squeeze my meat. I'm a big believer in not doing that, because everything you squeeze here, you don't need to do stupid stuff for Instagram or TikTok. You just rob yourself of a super juicy bite. Sliced brisket to order, as I say. So don't ever slice the entire brisket, slice off what you need. And then when you're, like in between cutting for someone, you can kind of keep it like that, resting in the tallow so that it's not oxidizing. So to slice this entire brisket, which I'm not going to do, we'll slice this direction. The grain and the point goes complete opposite direction of this, so I spin it sideways and actually cut that this direction. But enough talking, let's get into this bad boy. Just give me a little slice here. I love the middle of a brisket where you get a little bit of the lean, a little bit of the fatty, personally. Make sure it bends properly. Can you, pull it apart really easily, which obviously we can. And let's just get a good bite of that lean. By the way, serious smoke ring, for people that think that you can't get a smoke ring on a Traeger, that's silly talk. That's the cook, not the device. Very smoky, obviously very tender. I love holy cow on a brisket. I'm biased, but it's primarily salt and pepper, but it's also got garlic in it. Big believer in that flavor profile. I also love to sprinkle a little holy gospel across the top time to time. Let's get some of the original burn ends right here off the point. I love the point meat. While I'm cutting these up, I'll talk about the cook a little bit. So the brand new Traeger Ironwood XL, can it cook a brisket straight out of the box? Well, look what we just delivered. Obviously the answer to that is yes. That thing operated flawlessly, as you would expect. I love the convenience of being able to use the meter and the app remotely. Down the hatch with a little burn in. I ain't mad at it. Love the new grill. By the way, if you're considering one of these, much more economical price point than the Timberline with most of the features of the Timberline, so I highly recommend that. The previous Ironwood model was my favorite to use on a daily basis anyway, so that's a no-brainer for me. But anyway, I'm gonna save this point right here for my bourbon guys coming for our tasting that we're gonna do tonight. So be sure that you check that video out when it comes out. It'll be a couple weeks from now, but we've got a bourbon expert that's come down from Kentucky, as you saw in the beginning of this video, and I'm super excited about all the knowledge that he's gonna bring. He knows, he's like me, I'm a nerd in the barbecue and outdoor cooking world. My whole life's work is around outdoor cooking. He's done the same thing in bourbon, so I know y'all are gonna like that, so be sure to check that out. But please like and subscribe to our channel. Your subscriptions allow me to bring more videos to you guys. We're just here to inspire you guys to get outside and to cook. So if you wanna make a beautiful, barky, smoky, delicious brisket, like and subscribe. See y'all next time.